Good morning. So first, as always, I want to thank Dr. Joyce Johnson for her incredible music. And she always finds just the right songs. And I also just want to acknowledge, over the weekend, Dr. Johnson was honored with a Lifetime Achievement Award. I was pleased to be able to present that to her. So another round of applause. So welcome to all of our students, to our faculty, staff, and special guests. I'm a bit nervous about standing up here today because you all have come to expect that every time somebody stands up here, there's going to be a big check that follows. So no big check today. Want to make sure you get your expectations accordingly. But this is a very special convocation, and I think you will see that it is perhaps as exciting as the one that was a week or so ago. And while we know that this convocation is required for some of you, we hope that you also appreciate how important these convocations are. They're a way of adding to what you get in the classroom, a way of thinking about how you continue your learning, your development in a very holistic way. And it really is part of continuing to build that bond of sisterhood. So happy that all of you are here today for what I know will be a very special occasion. We also like to, when we can, bring alumni back, especially alumni who represent, a lot of the things that we hope that you're gaining from this experience. And many of our alumni really embody that tagline that we have, a choice to change the world. And the person you will hear from, I think, is really high up there on somebody who has used their life in a way that has made a huge difference, well beyond herself, well beyond what many might have expected, maybe even well beyond what she expected. But we know that she has really made a huge impact on our nation and our world. Dr. Spence is going to talk more about that. So I am going to hand the podium over to Dr. Spence. Many of you know Dr. Spence, who is the Associate Professor for Sociology and also the Director of the UNCF Mellon Mays Program and the Social Justice Program here at Spelman. Before I do that, I just want to thank her team for making this happen. Particularly thank you to Pamela Stiegel, the Social Justice Program Coordinator, for all you did to make this come together. Always our STS colleagues for all you do to make sure that you hear people well and all the technology works. And our colleagues from Communication who continue to memorialize these events so that we can look back on them in the future. So without further ado, I will bring to the podium Dr. Cynthia Spence, who will introduce the social justice scholars and our main speaker for today. So thank you all for being here.
Good morning, my Spelman family. How's everyone doing? Good? Very good. Well, we are extremely excited about this convocation. And again, thank you, Dr. Gale, for all that you do to lead this institution. And she, too, is an example of someone who's made a choice to change the world. So we certainly know that, and we want to recognize her. So thank you so much. Today's convocation will, in addition to featuring our esteemed alumna, Stacy Abrams, it will also feature two of your Spelman siblings, Gabrielle Gregory and Mosen Shora, who will be in conversation with Stacy. And so I want to introduce them first before I introduce Stacy. Gabrielle Gregory is a sophomore international studies and sociology and anthropology double major from Mount Vernon, New York. She is also a W. Johnson Roundtree Presidential Scholar seeking to honor Mrs. Roundtree. Gabrielle has continued her lifelong journey of advocacy and activism at Spelman College. In her freshman year, Gabrielle served as a student statewide leader with the Stacy Abrams gubernatorial campaign in Georgia. More recently, Gabrielle has assumed the roles of Spelman College Social Justice Fellow, yay, Social Justice Program, Black Girlhood Studies Fellow, co-president of the Spelman chapter of Fair Fight U, and historian of the Spelman College National Action Network. Outside of Spelman's gates, Gabrielle is the founder of Sankofa Village, a nonprofit designed to bridge the gap between and among children of the diaspora. As evidenced by her work, Gabrielle's social justice passions revolve around voter advocacy and educational activism. Gabrielle will be joined by Mosen Shora. Mosen is a graduating senior from Boston, Massachusetts. Yes, yes. She is majoring in international studies with a concentration in development. She is a Spelman Social Justice Associate, Black Girlhood Studies Fellow, and co-president of the Spelman College chapter of Fair Fight U, and a Gilman Scholar. She recently completed a transnational comparative research project on methods of resistance among marginalized groups during her study abroad in Nepal, Jordan, and Chile. As well as interning for Cameroonian Leap Girl Africa, servicing young Cameroonian girls affected by war. She is extremely passionate about community organizing and racial justice, and is involved with several local grassroots organizations. So as you listen to their bios, you know that you too can craft such a life as the ones, Spelman life is the ones that they are crafting. And so now, and I'm not sure if I think they're gonna wait and come out. I want to introduce to you someone that I have known for as long as most of you. All right, this is Gabrielle Gregory and Mosen. Okay, yeah, right. I'm going to introduce to you Stacy Abrams. I've known Stacy since the time she was sitting in the seats that you're sitting in as a first-year student, having to come to mandatory convocation, which at that time I think was every week, and they had these little slips of paper that they had to turn in because we didn't have all of the barcodes and all of that stuff. But as I introduced Stacy and I was thinking about her introduction, I thought about the Spelman mission statement. And so for those of you who are first-year students, I want you after this to go back and look at the mission statement. And I want you to begin to think about how you will craft a life that is reflective of who we say we are. The mission statement says this: Spelman College, a historically Black college and a global leader in the education of women of African descent, is dedicated to academic excellence in the liberal arts and sciences and the intellectual, creative, ethical, and leadership development of its students. Through diverse learning modalities, Spelman empowers the whole person to engage the many cultures of the world and inspires a commitment to positive social change. Today, you will hear from someone whose life and work embodies the call to action that our mission statement affirms and asserts. As a student, Stacy's engagement as a young scholar activist reminded us every day of who we say we are through our mission statement. Yes, as I stated, she sat where you are sitting. Sometimes she didn't want to be here, but she sat there. She attended some of the same courses and often queried her place in the world and what her future would be. There were no disciplinary boxes that could hold Stacy Abrams, so she sampled courses from multiple areas. She applied for the opportunities that you are either applying for or will apply for. She received acceptances, and sometimes she received denials, but she persisted. Armed with her Spelman degree in tow, her postgraduate degrees in law from Yale University and in public affairs from the University of Texas, Stacy Abrams made a very intentional choice to change the world. She spent time as a tax attorney and a city attorney before turning her eyes toward politics. She became the House Minority Leader for the Georgia General Assembly and the state representative for the 89th House District. She was the first woman to lead either party in the Georgia General Assembly and the first African American to lead in the House of Representatives. Remember, this is Georgia. She was the Democratic nominee for the governor of the state of Georgia in 2018, okay? And I believe she actually won that election, but that's a whole nother story. But then she was not deterred. She became the Democratic nominee for governor in 2022. She literally turned the state blue. Stacy has launched multiple nonprofit organizations devoted to democracy protection, national and local voter engagement, and organizations designed to tackle multiple social issues, not only in the South, but also throughout the nation. Her nonprofit and entrepreneurship work have included a beverage company with a focus on infants and toddlers, and a company specializing in development, investment, and consulting for complex infrastructure projects, including transportation, waste by rail transfer, energy, facilities, and water. As an interdisciplinary thinker and doer, she is the CEO of SageWorks Production, a production company for television and film projects. She's a voting rights advocate. She has also served as the producer on the Academy Awards shortlisted documentary, All In, The Fight for Democracy, and wrote the New York Times best-selling books, Our Time Is Now and Lead from the Outside. She is also the author of 2 children's books and 2 political thrillers, While Justice Sleeps and Rogue Justice, and several romantic suspense novels. So if you haven't read Stacy Abrams, you must. She has I'm almost done. She has been nominated for an Emmy and received the NAACP Image Award in 2021 and 2022. She currently serves as the Ronald W. Walters Endowed Chair for Race and Black Politics at Howard University. We don't mind because it is HBCU, we don't mind, and is the Senior Counsel to Rewiring America. The social justice program, and many of you know this, often lifts up the words of Ida B. Wells, who stated, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them." Stacy continues to shine the light upon social issues and concerns that must be addressed for our nation to live up to our most cherished ideals. Like the song states, Stacy begins each day saying, "It is my choice, and I choose to change the world." And we have members of the political science department here as well. Hello.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think she made some of that up. No, it is my honor to be here. Thank you, Dr. Gale. Thank you, Dean Spence. Hello. So, yeah, I went here. And I used to sit way in the back. It was mandatory. I did not realize that. So when Dr. Christine Ferris King, God rest her soul, called me to her office in the year of our Lord, 1991, and pointed out that my slips were missing, and I was about to fail Convocation, a pass-fail course. She strongly encouraged me to remember that my parents were not paying for me to watch soap operas. They were paying for me to learn. I said, well, if the soap operas and the learning didn't happen at the same time, we'd be in a much better place, but that's for another time. So I started coming to Convocation with the intentionality that Spelman required. And part of the reason it was a joy to come was to listen to Dr. Joyce Johnson, who is the most extraordinary musician. But I also came because we got to see extraordinary people standing on the stage. When I was at Spelman, we had Oprah and Alice Walker and Angela Bassett and Alfre Woodard, and I was here at a good time, man. It was good. But I was also here when the Rodney King decision came down. I was here when they locked off access to I-20 and cordoned off the AUC and tear gassed our campuses. I was here when in the aftermath of so many trials, we saw homelessness skyrocketing and we saw housing depleted. I was here when students were told to think about what the world should look like. And then, as now, I took that responsibility seriously. I came to Spelman College I wouldn't say by accident, I would say my mom tricked me. I did not want to go to Spelman. I grew up in Mississippi. I came of age in Georgia. I spent my entire childhood in the South, except for 3 years when I was born in Wisconsin. I just remember cold and cheese curds. But spent most of my time in the South, and I was determined to leave the South. I was determined to escape north of the Mason-Dixon and maybe never come back. I don't like the cold, though, so I hadn't really factored that into my analysis. But when I applied to college, I applied to schools outside of the South except for Spelman. And my mother said, well, you don't have to go, just apply. And so I applied. And then my mom said, well, you don't have to go, just go visit. And I should have known something was up then because my mother usually just told me what to do, and she was being way too nice about it. So I came to visit Spelman College, and two things were true. One, I grew up in a family that was very strict. In my family, you weren't allowed to date until you were 16. I was a tiny bit precocious, so I was a senior in high school before I could date. And I'd only dated one guy, and that's a whole other story. Just know that he's actually languishing in prison in one of my romance novels. It was a bad breakup. I have a small petty streak. Anyway, so I come to visit Spelman College, and I'm thinking, why would I go to an all-girls school when I am finally old enough and able to explore the world? And then I saw Morehouse. I was like, huh, interesting. That didn't last very long, but it was fun while it lasted. But what was more important to me was this moment. I came to visit when you got to come and visit on campus, and I saw all of these extraordinary black women from across the country. And standing in front of us was Dr. Janetta B. Cole, whose voice sounded like God just handed it to her and said, see what you can do with this. And she was arguing with my dad. My father had decided to lead the parents in a rebellion because he found out that men could visit our dorms. And he thought he was sending me to a nunnery, and that was disturbing to him. And Dr. Cole said to him, you are not sending your daughter here to be protected. You are sending her here to be educated and sent back into the world a better person, a stronger person, a woman capable of taking care of herself. And other than my mother, that was the only person I'd ever seen beat my father in an argument, so I had to come to Spelman College. And so I came. And while I was here, I had the extraordinary opportunity to study under incredible professors, to change majors so often that they actually put a sign in the registrar's office that I was not allowed to declare another major. I'm not joking. Because when I was here, you had to declare a major in order to take certain classes. I did physics, philosophy, theater, chemistry, creative. Oh yeah, I tried to do film at Clark Atlanta because Spike Lee was really big then. I really wanted to learn. And finally, Dr. Spence, Dr. Pettisclo, and a few others decided that I needed to write a paper describing what I wanted to know when I left and describing around when I thought I would leave because it seemed to be taking a while. And so I wrote a paper about what I wanted to know, and I went through the course catalog at Spelman, and I made a mark by every class I wanted to take, and then I realized I would be here until 2024. And so I instead decided to narrow my focus, and I thought about what wakes me up in the morning. With all the things that I'm interested in, with all of the worries that I have, what wakes me up? What animates me? And that's the first thing I want to talk to you about. My first lesson from Spelman was that I had to learn to be myself. And in that learning to be myself, say, learn to be myself. It turns out I contain multitude, as you saw from that very long bio. And I didn't have to narrow who I was to fit into someone's mold. I didn't have to be less of me to be more of what I wanted. And there are those of us who are told we have to pick one thing, choose one goal, focus on one initiative. And what I learned from reading that catalog was that I contained multitude, and I had the right to be everything I wanted to be. I had the right to learn whatever I wanted to learn, and I had the right to explore every facet of myself. It is easy to find yourself contained by expectation, contained by ambition, contained by what the world tells you you are. And I am here to tell you that your job at Spelman College is to learn to be yourself, no matter who that self is, no matter how many selves there are. If you listen to my bio, I'm a reality show waiting to happen. I am a tax attorney, romance novelist, politician. It's not a good reality show, but at least you tune in for at least 2 episodes. But what I figured out by being a student at Spelman College was that I was more than enough for who I wanted to be. My job was to collect the information, collect the support, collect the skills, and apply them to who I wanted to be. My second lesson was that I had to learn my lessons, not my losses. Say, learn your lessons, not your losses. You may have noticed I've lost a lot, usually really big. I was the first Black woman to be nominated to be governor of a state in the history of this country by a major party. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Chippy. I was also the first one to lose. And then I did it again. And there's those who say, don't say that you lost. But the reason I use the L word is because I don't think it's a curse word. It's a 4-letter word, yes, but it is a 4-letter word that contains lessons, it contains opportunities, it contains ambition, it contains courage, it contains bravery. You can't lose what you don't try for. But too often when we lose, we spend our time learning our losses, thinking about all the things we did wrong, all the ways we are not enough, all the things that people did to us that we are going to get them back for one day. I'm not advocating revenge. But I've decided early on, and I learned here at Spelman, not to learn my losses, not to make a tally of what I didn't get, but to learn my lessons. What did I gain? When I applied here at Spelman College for the Rhodes Scholarship, I was the first Spelman student to make it all the way through to the finals, and I didn't get it. I was absolutely convinced that I was inadequate to the task, and in that moment, I learned my losses. And I made choices about where I was going to study next based on what I thought I was. And what that was less than. And there was a friend who was running a fellowship that I got when I was at Spelman who challenged me, and he said, are you challenging yourself to be the best version of yourself you can be? And the answer was no. I decided I was going to go for the least amount of trouble that would get me the greatest amount of gain. And he said he actually was very mean about it. He said that he was disappointed in me, and he was disappointed in my lack of courage. And in that moment, I realized instead of learning the loss of not getting the Rhodes, I needed to learn the lesson of getting further than any other student in Spelman's history had gotten. That in that moment, I was going to try for things I wanted. I was going to challenge myself for jobs I didn't think I would get because I would learn the lessons of trying, of stumbling, and of standing. Falling is easy. It's getting back up that's hard. But when you learn to get back up, you learn to realize being down is temporary. But getting back up is a building exercise. I learn my lessons now, and I will have more lessons to come because I don't plan to stop trying for things. I will make mistakes, and I will make them in public. I will make them in private. I will make them because of hubris, and I will make them because of courage. But I will always do it because I'm trying to learn my lessons and become more than I am. But my third lesson from Spelman College is to lead from the outside. I have never been in a place where I was supposed to be in charge. I have never stood for an office where the person I was running against thought that I was adequate to the task. I have never attempted to do something that other people have done before, usually. And it's easy to decide that I'm not the right person. It's easy to read, if I were on Twitter, or whatever they call it these days, the memes about me are amazing. There's some creative people out there. They're mean, but they're creative. And what they want me to understand is that I'm not supposed to be here, that I am not entitled to leadership, that I am not entitled to lift my voice and live my truth and do what I think needs to be done. But I believe in leading from the outside because that's the only way we're going to open the door and let everybody else in. I believe in leadership. Everybody say, lead from the outside. And it's not just because it's the title of my book. I believe in leading from the outside because when you're on the outside, you can see everything that stops people. You can see the barriers, but you can also see the pathways. You can see the cracks in the facade that tell you that you can't get inside, and you can wedge those cracks open. And every morning I wake up and I ask myself, what keeps me awake? What animates me? What excites me? But I also ask myself, what am I sad about? What worries me? And so often in leadership, we think we can't lead until we have all of the answers. That's not leadership. That's omniscience. Leadership is starting. Leadership is doing. Leadership is believing that if you add your voice, if you add your hands, if you add your effort, then things will get better. Leadership is about starting, not doing everything everywhere all at once. Fantastic movie, terrible mission statement. It's about doing something somewhere soon. And you were here at Spelman College because you have all led from the outside. You were all in spaces where at least someone there didn't think you would be here. And you led yourself out and you got yourself here, and now you're going to lead the world into greatness, and I know you're going to get it done because I'm tired and I need the help. I know that you are capable of leadership at phenomenal levels, and sometimes in ways people don't see and don't understand in the moment you're offering it. But when we lead from the outside, we see what is possible, but we also see that there are other people standing outside with us. When you are used to being inside, when you're used to being at the table, you forget all of those who are waiting to get let in. When you lead from the outside, you don't forget those who are standing out there with you. And so you link arms with them, and you lift your voices with them, and you speak up with them or for them. When you lead from the outside, you set your goals for the things that are achievable, knowing that if you have vision, what you can achieve expands with your effort. And if you lead from the outside, suddenly the outside doesn't seem so lonely anymore. I am honored to be here because Spelman College helped me learn these things. Spelman helped me recognize that I didn't have to have a regular major. In fact, at one point, the registrar's office called me to ask what was on my diploma because they didn't have a record of it. It's technically interdisciplinary studies, because I studied political science and economics and sociology. I worked for the mayor of Atlanta after I got into a fight with him about how he wasn't doing enough stuff for the young people of Atlanta. I led organizations and I spoke at the March on Washington, and all of those things began when I was sitting where you are. And so I'm here to tell you how extraordinary you already are and how remarkable you will become, because I've been where you are and I have seen where you are going, and I can't wait for you to get there. Thank you.
Gabby and I are proud daughters of immigrants, so today we just wanted to share a little bit of our own Black history. I'm Sudanese from the Halfawi Nubian tribe, and I'm wearing a traditional tobe.
And I'm Jamaican, and I am wearing the colors of the traditional Jamaican flag.
As a Sudanese woman standing here with a platform, I'd be remiss if I did not call attention to the ongoing war and genocide occurring in Sudan. As of this week, it has displaced over 10.7 million people, including the entirety of my family. What is needed is international attention and pressure, and that is the only way this matter can be resolved. So I implore you to keep your eyes on Sudan. As an organization that's committed to voter advocacy, we organized this discussion with Leader Abrams to discuss the importance of HBCU students exercising our civic duties in this current political climate.
We also wanted to take this opportunity to discuss the journey and accolades of Stacy Abrams as a successful Black woman in the advocacy field. We hope you all enjoy our discussion.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for joining us today. It is such an honor, especially you being such an accomplished Spelmanite. As for our first question, what message do you have for young people who are disenchanted with the current administration saying they will not vote?
Hello. There we go. When I was a student, I was 17. I sat out on Manley Plaza with a clipboard on Fridays trying to get young people to sign up to vote, and nobody stopped. I was the loneliest person on Manley. And my mission at the time was to try to encourage young people to vote, to get them to register, to get them to care. I actually did my first international trip because I had become very involved in the issue of youth civic engagement. And the reality is this is a perennial challenge. It is difficult to connect the dots between casting a ballot and what politicians do. And it can seem not only disconnected, it can seem disingenuous. What I learned working for not only the city of Atlanta as a student, but as someone who went down there and protested a lot, I learned that my voice mattered in ways I didn't understand. My older sister went to Agnes Scott College. If you've ever visited Agnes Scott's campus, it was bucolic. They had quiche in their cafeteria. I love Spelman, but when I got to Spelman in 1991, Andrea went to a school that was surrounded by bookstores and coffee shops. I attended a college that was surrounded by liquor stores and gas stations. And I didn't think that was fair. And so I complained about it in a class, and someone said, well, so I'm like, why is this different? And they said, it's zoning laws. And I'm like, what are those? And these were meetings that weren't held at the regular time of city council meetings. Zoning meetings happen like the third Thursday in a month in a basement, but that's when they decide where everything can go. And so I started going to zoning meetings. And because of those zoning meetings, I helped prevent some things coming to the AUC. I was able to rally students and rally neighbors to say no. And the reason I tell you this is that it's not about how bad they are, it's about how good we demand they be. And having been a politician, I can tell you, we respond to the people who show up. And so when young people do not show up, your silence is taken not only as assent, they just assume you're not going to do anything about it. And if they don't have to worry about you, they are not going to work for you. So voting is not about the politician standing up asking for your vote. It's about the people who need their work to be right. And so one thing that I've tried to do is always connect the dots between the ballot cast and the ambition that should be realized. But it's also recognizing that if we show up today, we are not going to undo what preceded us, and they're not going to automatically change. That's like showing up at the Super Bowl having never played football before, unless you're Taylor Swift. I like Taylor. My point being, you're not going to make a big splash if you've never done the work before. Voting is not magic. It does not change everything. Voting is medicine. It is practice. And if you see who gets what they want the most, they're the ones who practice voting all the time. And not only do they practice voting, they practice making sure we can't vote. because they know that what they have been able to accrue, if they have to share it, they think there might be less of it. I actually believe that when things are shared, they actually multiply. I'm the daughter of 2 pastors. I believe in the loaves and the fishes. And I believe that power, when aggregated, can be shared, but we've got to show up and grab our power. That's why I created Fair Fight. That's why I am so proud of these 2 young women and the social justice warriors that are on this campus. Our power is in our presence. When people can ignore you, they can hurt you. But they can't ignore you if they have to answer to you. And if we show up, when we show up, things change. I sit here as someone who did not win an election twice. But the first time I got more votes than any Democrat in Georgia history, including President Barack Obama and Secretary Hillary Clinton. Thank you. But it was because people for a moment believed that their votes would count. And when it didn't happen, I could have just gone off into a corner and licked my wounds, and I did. I was angry for about 7 days. I was really mad. But then I was committed to getting something else done because people needed to believe that their effort had some value. And when I stood for office again, it was going to be tough, but I did it because I needed the same people who believed the first time to continue to believe that there was someone listening. I want to win the things I run for, but running is not just about getting the job, it's about doing the work to convince people that it's worth trying. And when you vote, when you bring someone with you to vote, when young people believe that it's not about the person on the ballot, it's about the person in the booth, that's when we start to see the dramatic change that we need to see in this country.
Thank you so much for that response. And I completely agree. I think that our votes matter generally, but especially as young people, because we make up the future. And that actually leads me to our next question, which is, as a Black woman, what do you see as the most pressing concerns for our future as leaders?
Well, having a democracy is the problem. So that keeps me awake at night. And I know we hear it said a lot, oh, our democracy is in trouble. But when I was sitting in your seats, my fight was to get people to use the right to vote. It was not to protect the right to vote. When I was here, we had a full-fledged Voting Rights Act that meant that they could not draw lines to draw us out of power. They could not stop us from casting our ballots. They couldn't forget to give us power cords for the machines and papers for our ballots. We had laws and courts that would defend us. You all don't have that anymore. We live in a moment where the evisceration and the erosion of our voting rights is real. We live in a moment where it is okay for someone who has never met you to challenge your right as a citizen to cast a ballot, and it's up to you to prove that you had the right. They don't have to prove you did anything wrong. That's the moment we live in. And so as Black women, as Black people, as people of color, we have to recognize that they can read the same demographic maps that we can. You are not only a rising generation, you are a generation that will change the composition of a nation. A nation that is the most powerful, the wealthiest. They are terrified of you. And they will be even more terrified if they know you will do something with that power. And so as Black women, what worries me, it's our loss of democracy, it's our loss of bodily autonomy. I grew up knowing I had the right to choose what to do with my body. We now live in a state where it is illegal for you to make that decision. We live in a state where the governor is still refusing to provide health care to the people of the state who've already paid for it. We live in a state where the governor and his minions have refused to fund lunches for children during the summer. We have to be so loud that they cannot ignore us. And as Black women, we've got to recognize that all of the perfidies and the pathologies that are visited in our communities usually find us first. And so our fight back is not just for us, it is how we change the narrative for everyone. It is not fair that Black women often are the canaries, and it's a terrible analogy, but it's not fair that we are often the first to experience the worst. but it is a superpower that we have the ability to force them to do better when we do our jobs. That's what I believe.
Thank you for your insightful answer. Speaking of concerns, many students support the Palestinian liberation and autonomy movement, but are angered by the Biden administration's response and involvement in the ongoing conflict. How do you advise these students, especially in regard to the upcoming presidential election?
I, first and foremost, acknowledge that the horrific attack of October 7th means that the people of Israel feel a legitimate fear. But I also acknowledge equally and with the same passion the lives and value of the lives of the Palestinian people. The complicated nature of politics tells that we have to be able to hold both truths at the same time. And each of you is called upon to determine how you think that truth should be realized. I push back against anyone who says that silence is your responsibility. It is not. As a student who engaged in multiple protests, I would tell you to own you have the right and the responsibility to lift your voice. You have the obligation to share what you know, but we also have the opportunity to listen to others. And I say that not to diminish or to change what anyone wants to do, but to say that when we think about the upcoming election, you absolutely should put on the table the things that will make you decide who you're going to vote for. And you should hold everyone who asks for your vote accountable for how they are going to answer that request. You have the right to want what you want. You have the responsibility to communicate that in a manner and with an effectiveness that allows people to engage. And so this is going to come across to some as a non-answer. As someone who does not hold elected office, there's not much I can do, but as someone who believes that power doesn't sit only in elected office, I'm here to tell you, you have the right